Why would a 17-year-old emperor fall in love with his 34-year-old wet nurse? Her name was Wan Zhen'er. Born an ordinary girl, she was chosen to care for the young crown prince Zhu Jianshen in a turbulent court. Her gentle care became the only light in his lonely childhood. As the prince grew into a handsome young man, that bond quietly turned into love. On the day he took the throne, he ignored every protest and made her his consort. From wet nurse to imperial noble consort, she ruled the harem, influenced politics, and crushed rivals to keep his love. They lost their only child, yet stayed together for 23 years. On her deathbed, she wept for leaving no heir. The emperor stayed by her for 3 days and followed her 8 months later. Was this forbidden love a tale of devotion or a scandal that defied tradition? Hi everyone, welcome back to a different story. Today, we're diving into one of the most unusual love stories in Chinese history, the romance between Emperor Zhu Jianshen and his nanny, Lady Wan Zhen'er. The year was 1487, during the Ming dynasty. In January, Lady Wan, then 58 years old, passed away. When Emperor Zhu Jianshen heard the news, he broke down in tears and cried out, "Without my Zhen'er, I have no will to live." True enough, just a few months later, in August, the grief-stricken emperor died at the young age of 41, following his beloved sister Wan into the afterlife. So who exactly was this woman? Why would a man, an emperor no less, love his wet nurse, who was 17 years older than him, so deeply that he chose death over life without her? Entering the palace. Wan Zhen'er's father was a minor official. Because a relative committed a crime, he was demoted and sent away to a remote region. Before leaving, he made a decision that would change his daughter's life and his entire family's fate. He asked a fellow townsman to bring little 4-year-old Zhen'er into the palace as a maid. Inside the palace, young Wan quickly proved herself clever and obedient. She soon caught the attention of Empress Dowager's son, the emperor's mother, and was raised at her side. For years, Wan lived the quiet life of a palace maid, until the age of 19, when the dowager assigned her to care for the emperor's 2-year-old son, Crown Prince Zhu Jianshen. From that moment on, she became the boy's wet nurse. A prince in misery. Now, you might wonder, how could the future emperor fall in love with his nanny? And not even a particularly beautiful one, according to the records. The answer lies in his tragic childhood. His father, Emperor Zhengtong, suffered one of the greatest humiliations in Ming history. In 1449, he was tricked into a disastrous campaign against the Mongols and was captured alive, the first Chinese emperor ever to be taken prisoner. To keep the dynasty from collapsing, the court, with the support of Empress Dowager's son, passed over the 2-year-old crown prince and instead made Zhengtong's brother the new emperor, known as Emperor Jingtai. The former emperor was demoted to retired emperor and placed under house arrest. Jingtai had his own son and wanted to secure the throne for him. That meant the young Zhu Jianshen, the rightful crown prince, had to go. In 1450, seeing no benefit from keeping him captive, the Mongols sent Emperor Zhengtong back to Beijing, hoping to spark a conflict between the two emperors. But Emperor Jingtai continued to keep his brother under house arrest and forbade anyone from contacting him. In 1452, when the boy was only 5, Jingtai's supporters stormed the prince's residence and expelled young Zhu Jianshen from the palace. Everyone abandoned him, thinking he wouldn't survive. Everyone except Wan Zhen'er. She stayed by his side through those darkest years, feeding him, clothing him, even tasting his food first to make sure it wasn't poisoned. To the lonely boy, she was not just a caretaker, but the only person he could trust. Back as crown prince. In 1457, 10-year-old Zhu Jianshen reached a turning point. With the help of some ministers, his father, Emperor Zhengtong, staged a coup and regained the throne, restoring Zhu Jianshen's position as crown prince. However, having been caught up in the struggle for the throne since childhood, he suffered immense mental pressure and developed a stutter. Although people around him began to flatter and care for him, Zhu Jianshen felt that only Wan Zhen'er truly cared for him, and he relied on her completely. As he grew older, this dependence gradually transformed into a feeling that neither of them could fully explain. At the age of 15, Zhu Jianshen even insisted on bathing with Wan Zhen'er. The news reached Emperor Zhentong and the Empress Dowager, who were furious and ordered Wan to be beaten. But Zhu Jianshen refused to allow it, firmly protecting her. Empress Dowager's son regretted having put Wan in charge of the crown prince, but by then, Zhu Jianshen was securely established, and no one dared to act against Wan under his protection. In the end, the Dowager had no choice but to allow their relationship to continue. Emperor and Consort. In 1464, Emperor Zhentong passed away, and 17-year-old Crown Prince Zhu Jianshen ascended the throne, becoming the 8th emperor of the Ming dynasty. At this point, he no longer wanted to hide his feelings for Wan Zhen'er, even considering making her empress. However, a palace made by birth and significantly older than the emperor was naturally unacceptable. His mother, Empress Dowager Zhou, firmly opposed the idea. Zhu Jianshen, hindered by his stutter, could not argue effectively and had to compromise. He appointed Lady Wu from a noble family as empress and granted Wan Zhen'er the title of noble consort. Many people might wonder why an emperor couldn't simply choose his empress. In fact, in ancient times, most marriages between emperors and empresses were political alliances. As a result, the majority of empresses were unhappy. I've talked about this in one of my previous videos. If you're interested, you can check out The Emperor Who Became a Monk for Love. On his wedding night, however, Zhu Jianshen ignored Empress Wu and spent the night with Wan Zhen'er. From then on, he almost exclusively stayed in Wan's chambers, showing little concern for other consorts. The young and proud Empress Wu, driven by jealousy, once struck Wan Zhen'er during a dispute. When Zhu Jianshen learned of it, he was furious and immediately deposed Empress Wu. Her reign lasted only 1 month and 1 day. This incident made everyone in the palace realize Wan Zhen'er's position, and no one dared oppose her afterward. Although Zhu Jianshen wanted to make her empress again, his mother strongly opposed it. In the end, following Wan Zhen'er's advice, he appointed Lady Wang as empress. This empress had a troubled life, and during her 23-year marriage, she shared the emperor's bed fewer than 10 times. Losing a child. In 1466, 36-year-old Wan Zhen'er, after many hardships, finally gave birth to a son for Zhu Jianshen. Overjoyed, the emperor ordered a grand celebration. But just a few months later, the child tragically passed away. Wan Zhen'er was heartbroken, and the ordeal left her unable to have more children. Worried that she might lose the emperor's favor, she feared for her place. Yet Zhu Jianshen's love for her never wavered. When ministers urged him to favor other consorts to continue the imperial line, he remained unmoved. In 1487, 58-year-old Wan Zhen'er passed away. Upon hearing the news, Zhu Jianshen was inconsolable, whispering, "My love is gone, I will not live much longer." From that moment, he fell into a deep despair, and his health steadily declined. That August, overwhelmed by grief, he died at the age of 41. Their love, though controversial, remained steadfast to the very end. A darker side. Wan Zhen'er has been the subject of much debate among later generations. Some accused her of secretly harming imperial children out of fear that other consorts might steal the emperor's favor. The 9th emperor of the Ming dynasty, Zhu Jianshen, provides an example. According to legend, Zhu Jianshen once showed favor to a palace maid who became pregnant. When Wan Zhen'er learned of it, she reportedly sent someone to give her an abortion potion. But out of sympathy for the maid, the messenger lied to Wan, claiming that the maid was merely ill. As a result, Zhu Jianshen was secretly born and quietly raised within the palace, only meeting his father at the age of 6. The maid, however, was eventually killed. Having witnessed the brutal struggles of the palace firsthand, Zhu Jianshen vowed to marry only one woman for life, and he ultimately remained devoted to his empress until the end. He became the 3rd and final emperor in Chinese history to practice monogamy. I've covered his story in one of my previous videos. the craziest imperial records you never knew, and the most bizarre imperial records. If you're interested, feel free to check them out. I've also talked about the other two emperors in my shorts, so you can watch those as well. Not the only one. Zhu Jianshen was not the only emperor to marry his wet nurse. The 15th emperor of the Ming dynasty, Zhu Jianshen, also married his own wet nurse. Known as the Carpenter Emperor, Zhu Jianshen loved woodworking and paid little attention to governing. His wet nurse, similarly seeking to secure her position, reportedly harmed many imperial sons, leaving Zhu Jianshen without an heir at the time of his death. As a result, the throne passed to his younger brother. The Ming dynasty had many unusual emperors like him, and I plan to make videos exploring each of them.
Having shared all this, I'm sure everyone has their own thoughts and opinions. I believe that the bond between Zhu Jianshen and Wan Zhen'er may not have started as love, but rather as care and dependence. Yet over decades, their relationship remained so strong that it must have grown into true love. After all, the emperor had so many consorts. If it weren't genuine love, he could not have favored only Wan Zhen'er for his entire life. So, what's your answer? Leave a comment and let me know. That's it for today's story. See you in the next video.